your question was, well, what are some of the things that can be done? I've been teaching constitutional law for a long time. Most constitutional scholars will tell you, at least those that believe in originalism, that the two most abused portions of text in the U.S. Constitution are the general welfare and the Commerce Clause. Those two portions of text have been used to create the federal monster that we have today. And certainly there are other areas. But the bottom line is that there are things that can be done, that need to be done, that could be done through the first mode, the congressional mode of amendments. But the U.S. Congress will never do things like that. They've shown that they're never going to balance the budget. They've shown that they're never going to do term limits. And we really need term limits on the U.S. Congress and on the federal courts. Things that are going to curtail their spending, like fixing or resetting the text of the Commerce Clause, they're never going to do things like that. People often ask, well, Bob, if they're not following it now, what makes you think they're going to follow it when we pass it? And that sounds like a good question on the surface, but it betrays a level of misunderstanding of what's really wrong. If you were to ask any of the 535 members of the Congress, the 100 senators, 435 House members, why aren't you following the Constitution? None of them are going to tell you they're not following it. They're going to point across the street from the U.S. Capitol to the United States Supreme Court. And they're going to say, they tell us that this is constitutional. So if we're going to be honest with ourselves, we really have to turn our gaze across the street at that U.S. Supreme Court and ask ourselves, what are they doing? And what they're doing is they're operating off of a different constitution. It's a great video that we have out there in Convention of States that shows the two constitutions, the pocket constitution, the small, thin little, realize that our entire manual for our federal government fits inside one of those small, little pocket constitutions. And then there's the 3,000-page behemoth rulings and precedents. And the U.S. Supreme Court is operating off of all those precedents. And people say, well, Bob, they won't follow it if we amend it. That's simply not true. It sounds good, but it's not true. They're following, most of the modern amendments are followed to the letter because of the crystal clear language. Nobody's arguing and perverting the language of the amendment that gave women the right to vote in the 19th Amendment. That's also an argument that explains when people say, well, we don't need to amend it, there's nothing wrong with it. Well, the founders knew that they gave us an incredible document, but they knew it wasn't perfect. And we've fixed several things. We've fixed the issue of slavery with the 13th Amendment. We've fixed the issue of women not being able to vote with the 19th Amendment. Now, certainly I would argue against a couple of them, maybe the 16th and 17th Amendments I think there's problems with. But certainly there's the amendments, the modern amendments, I would say north of the 14th Amendment are being followed to the letter today. And so amendments will fix things. They will change things. If we can get amendments for term limits, the courts will follow those, just like they follow the presidential term limits amendment, the 22nd Amendment. And so we really can fix what ails our country through this process.